The knife glimmered as I held it above the pristine white cake, the flickering candlelight casting dancing shadows across the room. My fingers trembled, the blade colder than the hard truth settling in my stomach. The aroma of rich vanilla mingled with the expensive perfume that clung to my skin. A scent he had chosen for me, a mere accessory to his shimmering success. In the grotesque stillness of that moment, I could hear the muffled laughter of our guests, the clinking of glasses filled with the finest champagne, and the symphony of deception that wrapped around us like a heavy velvet curtain. I paused, the chaos of the world around me fading into silence as I caught sight of the lavish diamond necklace glinting around my neck. A gift from him, an insult masquerading as devotion, heavy with the weight of memories that curled like smoke in the air. Each diamond sparkled like a cherry on a wretched Sunday, sweet yet sour. I had poured my heart into this man, sacrificed my dreams, my friendships, and my youth, all for him to rise on the shoulders of my dedication. I ate instant ramen while you dined on caviar, I murmured under my breath. Words meant for the walls of my own heart, unheard by the polished veneer of the man I had loved. As I stood there, poised and silent, memories tore through my mind like shards of glass. I had been the one who had coaxed him into taking that pivotal investment opportunity, my instincts guiding him as he surged upward in the corporate hierarchy. "Trust me," I had said. "I see potential in you that even you can't recognize." Moments of late-night brainstorming sessions flooded back, our kitchen transformed into a war room, the scent of burnt toast mingling with the desperation of dreams yet unfulfilled. I had dedicated everything to him, my time, my love, my very essence, while he indulged in gilded fantasies without me. Yet, the irony cut deeper than any blade as the memory slid into focus. There, at the edge of the dinner table, his cold, calculating eyes locked with mine. The tone was sharp, cutting as he addressed me. "You're getting old and useless, and soon I'll be free of this marriage and all its burdens." My heart plummeted, a stone tossed into a bottomless abyss. I felt the room constrict around me, the laughter morphing into a cringe-worthy backdrop, a theater of betrayal playing out in slow motion. The mask had slipped. I had dared to envision a future filled with love, but instead, his betrayal was an icy hand gripping my throat. But then, I heard the faintest rustling sound, a fluttering against the edges of my resolve, from inside my clutch bag, the leads of his downfall hidden within my grasp. My pulse quickened, a wicked thrill coursing through my veins. Slowly, deliberately, I reached inside, fingers brushing against the cold paper of my carefully secured evidence, a collection of what he thought were my blind spots, bank statements, emails, and that one damning document that sealed his fate like a noose. At that very second, I knew I could not allow this moment to slip into obscurity, not without retaliation. Quietly, my eyes turned back to the guests, their smiles bright, yet oblivious to the storm brewing beneath my surface. I took a step forward, the luxurious carpet beneath my feet whispering tales of wealth and power, each step a latched door promising retribution. Their laughter made my heart ache, each chuckle a dagger reminding me of the laughter I had once shared with my husband, now a man cloaked in self-interest. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice steady and bold, resonating with a power I had kept hidden even from myself. A hush fell over the crowd, their eyes narrowing as they turned toward my trembling figure, poised above a cake adorned with the unearned opulence of a man who had cast me aside. I felt their eyes like burning coals, the tension heavy with anticipation. As I squared my shoulders, I lifted my chin defiantly, channeling every ounce of pain and betrayal into the steel of my voice. "I'm here to unveil the real truth behind this extravagant facade." Whispers swept through the audience like wildfire, thickening the air with disbelief and intrigue. My husband's eyes widened, mirroring the shock spreading across the faces around the table. There was but a moment of hesitation before I plunged forward, driven by an unyielding need to reclaim my narrative. "While you all enjoy your pastries and bubbly, and listen to tales of unwavering loyalty and love, I've gathered quite a different story, one that speaks of embezzlement, of deceit dwelled in the very shadows of your trusted CEO." Gasps fluttered like moths caught in a light, revulsion dripping from their expressions, and my husband's face became a mask of terror mixed with the rich shade of stubborn disbelief. The fabric of his world was unraveling, an intricate tapestry of lies fading into ghostly threads. I beckoned a friend, my ally, who stood by the bar, a knowing nod exchanged, for he held the key to the noose tightening around my husband's neck. With a flick of his wrist, he produced a projector, an inconspicuous piece that had been prepped for the evening, a twist of fate hidden merely in the shadows, ready for illumination. The screen flickered to life, illuminating the gathered faces, revealing the dark underbelly of greed lacing my husband's prosperity. Those bank statements and confidential emails streamed across the surface, projections of corruption laid bare for all to see. I branded him a colossal fraud in every line presented, my voice a steady stream of torment digging into my husband's soul. Do you see this? The transfers to offshore accounts, the fabrications of expense reports, all while I toiled beneath the weight of expectation. He was siphoning away our fortune. Enough, he screamed, desperation clawing at the edges of his control. The facade of authority began to crumble swiftly, unraveling like cheap thread falling apart at the seams. You're insane. You can't prove any of this. But my focus was sharper than any venom he could muster. He attempted to gaslight me, denying his actions with rhetoric designed to belittle, a dangerous game he never realized I could play with him. You think everyone will believe you? A woman in her late 40s, outdated and desperate? He spun his web of lies, trying to catch me in a chokehold of absurdity. I'm far from obsolete, I hissed, determination fueling my resolve. I've built this empire, armed with the sacrifices that shaped your rise. You confused my kindness with weakness, but the foundations of this firm crumble beneath your greed. With a final surge of adrenaline, I unveiled the ultimate piece of evidence. The hidden account synced to his untraceable phone, messages from a broker detailing scheduled payments and transfers to an account set up in the name of his mistress. The silence shattered like glass, leaving the air thick with the anguished screams of truth finally breaking free from its shackles. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, glances switching between my husband and me, their loyalties wavering. The ballroom, once filled with merriment and laughter, became a silent church of judgment. I could almost hear the collective heartbeats of the crowd, thudding in synchronicity with my retribution. Amidst the storm of accusations, what I discovered in his eyes was a chilling realization. The eye of revenge pierced deeper than the sharpest blade. I had taken back my narrative, my power rising like a phoenix from its ashes. If you want to see how this wife destroys the traitor, subscribe now. As I concluded, I felt the rush of victory surge through my veins, a sweet melody of assurance through a symphony of betrayal. I stood in the eye of their storm, poised to dismantle the remnants of a life built upon deceit and to embark upon a journey of my own making. The muffled clinks of champagne flutes still echoed in the recesses of my mind, blending together in a haunting symphony that almost drowned out the internal chaos. My husband's words played on a relentless loop, laughter mingled with his disdain, echoing like ghostly shadows around me. You're getting old and useless. Each syllable lodged itself deep beneath my skin, a bramble of doubt that threatened to choke me. I stood, frozen in the wake of my defiance, as guests whispered like shadows that flitted away into the night, not daring to look my way. The room felt immense, yet claustrophobic, the grandeur of the venue reduced to cold marble and extravagant chandeliers that no longer sparkled. They, just like our love, had lost their sheen. My heart still thundered with the aftershocks of my revelation, the adrenaline dissipating into the darkness within. I was a woman on the brink. Days passed in a surreal haze, each morning unfurling like stale bread. A dull ache replaced the spark of justice that had ignited within me. His laughter, so once charming, now filled the corridors of our home with echoes of betrayal. I could hear him moving about, the deliberate clatter of his shoes against the polished hardwood like a metronome of my descent. Suddenly, I felt unmoored, tossed about on an ocean rife with confusion. On the surface, I wore the mask of the dutiful wife, but beneath it, the tempest raged. Am I crazy? I whispered into the empty spaces of our home, those walls thick with memories and deceit. In my mind, a flicker of doubt ignited, a cruel ember urging me to collapse under the weight of his lies. The sleek, modern kitchen, once the backdrop of our shared dreams, now felt like a cage. It was adorned with polished granite countertops that reflected the harshness of my reality and mirrored the emptiness in my heart. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee transformed into sour notes, mixing with my growing sense of despair. And within that despair, a piercing recollection of the moment that had sent me spiraling into the abyss. "You're nobody without me." The statement slithered back into view, coiling tightly around my reason. Maybe he's right, I thought. Maybe I've lost touch, and I'm clutching at straws. Battling the swell of self-doubt, I got lost within the routine of serving dinners and organizing social events. I buried my head under a mound of day-to-day responsibilities, convincing myself that my fragility could be masked beneath the artifice of a perfect house. That was until Lucy slid back into my life like a ray of unexpected sunlight breaking through the storm clouds. With her fierce spirit and relentless ambition, she had always been more than just a friend. She was my ally, my steel wall against weakness. The aroma of her signature lavender perfume lingered like a familiar embrace as she arrived at my door one day, unannounced and bursting with intention. "What's wrong? You seem distant," she said, her eyes probing mine. The warmth of her presence cut through the fog that surrounded me. "When was the last time you laughed? Really laughed?" I hesitated, the words dancing on my tongue before spilling forth in a rush. "He said I was old and useless. I think I'm losing my mind, Lucy." The confession felt heavy, like her perfume infused with the scent of honesty vulnerable enough to expose the core of my fear. What he said was cruel and manipulative, she asserted fiercely, a spark igniting in her gaze as she poured herself a cup of my now cold coffee. "You cannot let him reshape your mind. You have every right to reclaim your worth." As the steam billowed from the mismatched porcelain, I felt the snare of my self-doubt start to loosen. She settled her gaze on me, a lighthouse cutting through my storm. "You need to gather proof, Emma. A woman like you can outsmart him and dismantle his control." Once more, a door opened. Lucy introduced me to her husband, Marcus, an astute lawyer who radiated wit and unwavering conviction, a man who believed in justice where I had started doubting my own reality. I could almost taste the crisp scent of legal paper and hard determination hanging in the air as I took a seat in the small coffee shop they frequented, a casual yet charged atmosphere so different from the regality of my own home. I recounted my husband's incessant manipulation, the gaslighting that gnawed at my sanity. Each word tumbled out in an unraveling stream like torrents pulling from a newly breached dam. "I just need to know if I can expose him somehow, if I can prove that he's been embezzling funds," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. Marcus leaned back, fingers steepled under his chin. "Let's strategize." He sketched out a framework on a paper napkin, each flowchart spelling out the painstaking steps I needed to take, a roadmap back to reclaiming my life. "Bank statements, emails, financial records. Collect everything you can find," he advised, his voice steady and reassuring. "Even if it seems mundane, it could lead to something larger. Together we'll shine a light on his darkness." Days turned into a methodical pursuit of truth. I transformed into a quiet infiltrator within the fortress of our home, feeling like a spy in my own life. The air was heavy with an intoxicating cocktail of fear and exhilaration as I tiptoed around his unyielding presence, the whispers of my resolve inspiring me like an illicit lover. The gentle hum of the refrigerator and the ticking clocks around me became trivial sounds prioritizing my purpose, uniting me in my mission. I started with my husband's study, once a sacred space filled with trophies and accolades now turned into a den of secrets. I cautiously opened drawers, sliding my fingers along textured leather-bound folders, my heart racing against the rapid drum of uncertainty. With each document I collected, from mundane receipts to cryptic emails, I felt more emboldened, my hand steady like a poised knife. I started to understand the layers of deception he had created, each paper a fragment of his avarice. The textured edges of the bank statements became familiar under my fingertips, brushing against the reality of this man I thought I knew, like the hollow whispers of an old, warped record. In one chilling moment, everything aligned. I stumbled across an unassuming folder, its contents thick and smeared with the residue of betrayal. My heart sank as I flipped through meticulously organized notes and charges for lavish dinners and extravagant expenses, each ink stroke lingering with an urgency that sparked morbid curiosity. There lay photos of him, seated at clandestine tables, drinks held high, laughter shared with a woman who wasn't me. It was all too painfully exquisite, the evidence mounting like a crescendo toward catharsis. As my inspector's gloves slid over delicate paper, I felt the walls of my world shift, brick by unforgiving brick, and with them fell every ounce of doubt that threatened to hold me hostage. Amidst the thrill of illicit discovery, I felt my fury grow profound. Each piece of evidence not only served as a tool for my forthcoming confrontations, but was equally a balm for my wounded pride. Finally, with a binder thick under my arm and Lucy at my side, I prepared to face my husband again, a heaviness in the air thick with unsaid words. The chaos was far from over. I could still hear his dismissive remarks echoing, but this time I was equipped with more than just my desperate hopes. I had proof to shatter his veils of deception. "Gather your strength, Emma," Lucy whispered, the supportive warmth of her presence grounding me. "Your moment is coming." I nodded, steely resolution flooding through me like a heat wave, the fragrance of lavender and coffee still fresher than the blood of betrayal coursing through my veins. I would no longer allow his words to dictate my reality. I had him, right where I wanted him. The time for the silent war was passing, and the battle for my truth was on the horizon. The day arrived like a concealed dagger hidden beneath velvet. It was my husband's birthday, a grand charade disguised as a celebration drenched in opulence. The venue, a sprawling botanical garden, infused with the fragrant allure of jasmine and roses, was adorned with hues of cream and gold accents flickering amidst the lush greens, as if nature itself conspired to bask in the glow of my husband's supposed success. I felt the tension coil tightly in my gut as I stepped into the magnificent tent, the cool evening air tinged with the sweet aroma of florals, mingling with the spicy notes of gourmet hors d'oeuvres. Guests milled about, their laughter spilling into the atmosphere like the rich notes of aged wine swirling in crystal goblets. The sound of clinking glasses harmonized with the soft rustle of silk dresses and crisp suits, creating an audio tapestry of wealth and congratulations. I could barely contain the chaos that thudded within my chest, an eruption waiting to unveil itself amidst the smiling faces of our so-called friends and acquaintances. As I scanned the crowd, a hard knot in my stomach twisted tighter. My husband, ever the charming figure, stood at the center, a self-aggrandizing throne amid adoring subjects. His laughter a treacherous melody that echoed through the air, a discordant note that would soon meet its inevitable consequence. I moved through the throng, a phantom amongst spirits painted perfectly for the evening. Each step felt heavy, wearing my meticulously chosen gown like armor, the deep midnight blue fabric swirling around my legs, wrapping me in a silken cocoon. The light draping from the chandeliers sparkled like stars caught inside glass cages. Taking deep breaths, I mentally rehearsed the words that lingered to be unleashed, the evidence packed in a binder tucked tightly under my arm. My heart thrummed a relentless pace as I approached the bar, where I found Lucy, always the fierce advocate beside me, her presence a beacon of unwavering strength in this tempestuous sea. "Are you ready?" she asked quietly, the tremor in her voice almost imperceptible against the hum of chatter surrounding us. "More than ready," I responded, turning my gaze back to the man who had ruled my life in darkness for so long. "It's time the world sees him for who he truly is." The corner of Lucy's lips turned upward, a knowing smirk that stripped a thin layer of my anxiety away. Together, we prepared to set the stage, and with every tick of time against the ticking clock, I felt tighter stitches weave my resolve into steel. When the moment finally arrived, a whispered hush cascaded through the crowd as everyone gathered around the central table, adorned with a staggering three-tiered cake, glittering candles burning steadily atop. My husband smiled, face illuminated in a glow of unearned delight, completely unaware of the tempest just beyond the horizon. "Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention, please." I took the microphone, my voice breaking through the space with a clarity that rang like a bell. The energy shifted, curiosity gripping the air like thick smoke. I felt the warmth of their eyes upon me, intrigued glances glutted with expectation, captivating the masks they wore so carefully just as much as I had sculpted my own smile. "It's a beautiful night to celebrate my dear husband's achievements," I began, feigning an emotional quiver, my heart carousing in rebellious defiance. "But tonight is not just about him. It's about the truth." At that moment, the audience fell completely silent, the air laden with a heavy mix of disbelief and anticipation. the smoky tension thick enough to slice. I steadied the binder in my hand, its weight symbolizing the gravity of my years lost, sacrifices made, and a devotion that earned nothing but a stinging betrayal. You all know him as a devoted husband and an upstanding CEO, but what lies beneath this polished exterior is a truth that deserves to be revealed. Each word was deliberate, layering anxiety and power into the room, as I could almost taste the electric charge swirling in the humid air. I could feel my husband's eyes boring into me, confusion mingled with a flicker of panic as I continued. While we celebrate his birthday tonight, let me show you what he's been doing behind closed doors. Shivers thrummed through the crowd like the onset of a storm. I signaled to Lucy, who, with a swift motion, activated a projector, its blue light bursting forth to illuminate the surface of a white wall, transforming the atmosphere into a strange combination of anticipation and dread. Tonight, you will witness his betrayal, I declared, flipping open the binder with a crisp snap, sending a flurry of gasps filtering through the audience. I turned towards the projected images, liquid desperation coursing through my veins alongside adrenaline as I presented the first sheet, bank statements neatly organized, numbers dancing ominously in the dim light. Here you can see the offshore transfers, I narrated, each syllable laced with unwavering conviction as I pointed out the damning figures. These transfers, executed while I slaved away to support our family, directly funnel money to accounts that do not belong to us. The faces of the guests morphed into various shades of horror, shock transforming their expressions as they processed the gravity of my revelation. My husband's reaction was instantaneous, his face twisted into a mask of rage mixed with disbelief. "You can't possibly believe this," he stammered, desperation etched in his features, a shadow of the sycophant he had paraded before. But I pressed on, unfazed by his futile attempts to silence me. "Do you see this?" I flipping the sheet to illustrate lavish expenses charged to the company credit card, forging texts with brokers discussing illicit payments to his mistress under the guise of business meetings. The woman you flaunted while belittling me, the woman who shared your bed while I prided myself on making sacrifices. All of this, hidden behind the gall of your feigned love. The whispers from the guests swelled into a cacophony, colliding against the walls like a hurricane unraveling the polished facade of my husband. Their faces reflected a tumult of emotions, mirrored gasps, then confused glances exchanged as his web of lies slowly unfurled. "Emma, you're being ridiculous," he snapped, attempting to regain some semblance of control, though the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "You can't just what?" I interjected, the cadence of my voice raising above his floundering. "Expose you? Your deceit? The choice exists, but now it's me holding the truth. While you sought fortune, I sacrificed everything. You played me like a pawn on your board, but no more." Guests shifted uneasily, their eyes darting between him and me, an invisible scale tipping dramatically, destabilizing the balance of allegiance. I could hear scattered murmurs of disbelief mingling with the horror. "He's lying!" my husband shouted, his demeanor fraying at the edges. The noises faded away as I turned to present the final piece of evidence, the receipts from lavish dinners, the incriminating emails projected like fireworks igniting amidst a harrowing night sky. "But what truly binds us together tonight, my friends, is this," I stated, allowing the weight of the evidence to settle as indulgent movements skimmed across the screen. My husband's eyes burned with a mixture of panic and fury, his mask of control slipping steadily away. "You'll regret this, Emma," he hissed, though there was a noticeable tremor in his voice, a desperate acknowledgement that everything was spiraling away from him. I met his gaze, adrenaline thundering in my ears, the fires of retribution fueling my resolve. Regret? No. I will never regret setting myself free from a cage you crafted with your greed and deceit. Gasps rippled through the crowd, the tension like a taut wire ready to snap. Panic whispers filling the room like cascading leaves in a sudden windstorm. I could see it, the shifting of opinions, the collective societal feathers ruffled, revealing the underlying truths, bursting forth from the seams of silence. And with that, surrounded by the echo of revelations and sinking disbelief, I turned back to the room. "Would you have waited this long?" The question hung suspended, a painful whisper swallowed by the rush of adrenaline cascading within me. This was a battle won, a declaration made with the fervent strength that I kept hidden all those years. As the air thickened with anticipation, I knew that the war was far from over, but for this moment, I stood tall, undeniably powerful, a woman reborn. The past 6 months have unraveled like an unexpected dream, or perhaps a nightmare, depending on how you view it. The echoes of that night still chill my bones. The thrill of exposing the truth of my husband's corruption, thrumming through me like a forgotten song, rebounding off the walls of my soul. In that moment of defiance, I felt reborn. Now, the world continued to twist, leaving the villains in toxic ruins while clarity ushered in my ascent. In the weeks that followed my confrontation, the fallout curled around my husband like the gasping fog clinging to a dying city. News of his embezzlement spread like wildfire through corporate circles. Every sip from his crystal glass summoned a disgraceful shatter as peers turned their backs. Those who once embraced him now bared their true faces, having savored the sweet nectar of his success. The sweet aroma of luxury mixed with the bitter tang of betrayal enveloped my husband's world, a pungent reminder of hubris. The air in the office, for so long ripe with the scent of money, became acrid with whispers, nostrils twitching at the stench of greed unbound. Detection was a dance he had never intended to lead, the devil's indulgence backfiring elegantly in his face. By the time the dust settled, my husband stood alone amid the wreckage, stripped of power and prestige. His luxurious office, once filled with rich leather furniture and framed accolades, was reduced to shadows under flickering fluorescent lights. The texture of decline etched itself into the cracked walls, hiding a broken man deep within. I imagined him now, the reflection in the darkened window revealing a haunted figure in a cheap suit, too large and ill-fitting, desperation clawing at his seams. No longer the polished CEO, but a ghost of my betrayal, languishing in a state of isolation as colleagues kept their distance, noses raised in silent contempt. The whispers alone sent him spiraling. I could almost hear the hushed conversations. "Did you hear? He squandered it all for a mistress, and now she's gone." The idea of his world crumbling carried a sense of sweet vindication inside me. In his fall, the mistress emerged as merely another specter, her allure fading quicker than the wealth he had once showered upon her. Just as I had told him, love built upon rotting foundations seldom stands. As the last spark of his credit flashed like a dying ember, she slipped away, her previous vulnerability morphing into a sly self-preservation instinct. I imagined her strikingly lithe form dashing into the arms of another, drawn toward the scent of success, while young hearts offered her the affection and wealth my husband could no longer provide. When the utility bills began piling on his barren kitchen table, I could envision him slumped against his once grand walls, gnawing on crumbs of self-pity as the bill collectors knocked like shadows at his door. "You lost everything, didn't you?" I mused, daydreaming of the silvery shards of dishonor piercing through his heart. I had started picturing my former husband as nothing but a ghost, haunted by the memories of the lavish life he had squandered in the dark. That trepidation alone became a balm, soothing my own wounds. While he descended the rungs of despair, I began to rise, not merely overcoming, but thriving. In those dark moments when he tried to dismantle me, I began reshaping myself like clay in a sculptor's hands. With every step, I reclaimed the world that he had cast aside, peeling away layers of insecurity that I had so naively worn for years. Not only did I drop the burdensome doubt he imbued in me, but I transformed luxury into artistry, reimagining my existence from chaos into something deserving. The alluring scent of vanilla mingling with a gourmet espresso became my new ritual instead of the stale aroma of reassurance I once clung to. I immersed myself in my passions, reinventing my narrative, filling every nook of my life with vibrant color, a tapestry woven from resilience. As the flowers unfurled with each insistent breath of spring, so too did I, blooming with grace and power. My dreams, long since stuffed away in a forgotten corner, began sprouting like daisies, breaking through cracked sidewalks. With the treacherous weight of the past cast aside, I dived into entrepreneurship with fervor, launching a consulting firm that quickly gained traction. The satisfaction of building something anew fueled my spirit, invigorating my senses like the crisp air that cut through a heavy summer afternoon. Now, I commanded a room with confidence, absorbing validation not from curated facades of men with empty promises, but from my efforts born on my own. Gone were the days where I feared my age would consign me to the shadows. The bloom of experience crafted a raw beauty within me, the textures of laughter and pain surfacing through my skin, like the inevitable laughter lines around my eyes. I found it absolutely liberating to dare measure myself against societal standards that once sought to diminish me. No longer was I old and useless. I was richer, wiser, and a dazzling phoenix reborn from the ashes of betrayal, an engine driving under my own volition. A few weeks ago, I filmed an advertisement celebrating women in their prime, our laughter echoing alongside majestic mountains, the bright sun beaming onto our radiant faces. My majestic rebirth was not about revenge, but rather repair, a message for others who found themselves in similarly tarnished gilded cages. Each frame captured my essence, vibrant like the sun-kissed hues of spring, reminding others to rise above the struggles of the past, to embrace every flaw, every scar, and wear them like badges of honor. As I stood that day on the edge of the world, a breeze carrying the scent of fresh beginnings wafting toward me, I felt that same thrill I had experienced the first time I'd held that knife above the cake. Moments brimming with fate and purpose. And in those moments, I could hear the distant echoes of my husband's resentment twist in a symphony of desperation, a reminder of everything I had risen above. The world barely knew the extent of the truth that lay beneath the surface. My husband's downfall and the mistress's fleeting escape would be just part of a vast, unfurling story. It wouldn't be long before whispers would rise again, new betrayals lurking beneath the innocent facades. Just the other day, I received a call from a trusted acquaintance connected to my husband's past dealings. "We may need your expertise soon," she said, her voice low and conspiratorial. "There's been talk of some other deals that went south, and people are worried." A thrilling anticipation coursed through me as I hung up the phone, the fragrance of fresh contracts looming nearer. What awaited me next would mark yet another chapter in this glorious saga, a reminder that when darkness treads too close, the light is always willing to respond. As I reveled in my newfound excitement, my heart quickened with the promise of the upcoming challenges. I clutched the edges of my unfolding destiny tightly. If you think my journey of redemption has concluded, I beg you to consider, wait for the next narrative, where tempting shadows come calling, a story woven with treachery, revenge, and perhaps some startling errands that sink beneath the surface like jagged shards of glass. If you think that this rebirth is the most thrilling turn, brace yourselves. Coming soon, the tale of betrayal and greed unfolds anew, as I unearth the depths of deception lurking behind shattered trust. You won't want to miss this.